Thank you, Quinto, for that wonderful rendition. Hello and welcome. I think I've had a chance to meet everyone here today at some point, but in case not, I'm Devin O'Reilly, Jack's oldest son. Firstly, thank you. Thank you to the City of Dearborn team, the mayor, his staff, the department heads, police, fire. So many people helped out putting this together, this amazing tribute. Katie, Alia, Hala on the mayor's team, I exchanged countless calls and emails with you, making sure that this went smoothly and this was a proper tribute. So just thank you so much for helping with all that. Thank you all for being here, for showing up. For showing up today like my dad did, show up for you one time or probably more throughout your careers and lives and knowing him. It's been said in a lot of tributes already, but my dad was truly the consummate public servant. He lived a life of service to his family, to his friends, the people he worked with and worked for. He lived a life of service to the thousands of people who he never met and will never get a chance to thank him or even know that he helped in some way. He dedicated almost every single minute to other people, including all of you. But the incredible part was, he did that for us too, for his family. And I don't think I'll ever understand how he was able to do it. He was at every game, every recital, rides home from practice. He coached the teams, helped out with homework, took us to dinners, took us to road trips across the country, all while doing all the things that many of you knew him for, showing up to work, showing up to meetings. The only time I can remember him having any minute for himself was asleep at night on his favorite green chair in the TV room, still wearing clothes from whatever meeting or event he was at last. But the truth is, he wouldn't have had it any other way, and you all know that. He lived the life that he wanted to, and his joy came from being a positive force in others. The amount of lives he has impacted is immeasurable, but hopefully you can see some of that in the pictures, the artifacts, the memorabilia that we have here today that just give a glimpse into that. And because everyone has at least one Jack story, we invite you to go upstairs in the mezzanine if you haven't had a chance already. Throughout the day, CDTV has been gracious enough to set up kind of a camera, and you can share your favorite Jack story, testimonial, a story, a little memento, and that'll be a way that we can kind of remember that. We'll make sure to kind of catalog that. So please, when you have a chance, take time to do that as well. I'm so glad you could all be here today to take part in this celebration of life for someone who gave almost all of it to the people he cared about. I know you all share a belief that a life dedicated to improving and enlightening everyone else's is the definition of a life well lived, and my dad embodied that. Thank you.
Hi. To echo what Devin said, it's amazing to see all of you here together. I know he would have loved it. And thank you to the city for everything that you do. You really take care of your own, and it shows in a community like this. So thank you everyone who worked so hard on this. I'm Sean, I'm the middle one. I feel like that's how when we were younger and we went to events, I just described myself as I'm the middle one, but I'm Sean. I'm the one who lives in Los Angeles, and oh, I'm sorry, oh, okay, good, just making sure. The story that encapsulates my dad actually took place in Los Angeles, and that was, we were out on one of our road trips. I was about 12 at the time, and we're walking down the Venice Boardwalk. Okay, so you got a picture of the Venice Boardwalk. And as we're walking down, we pass a street performer, a rollerblading, electric guitar playing, in full Sikh attire street performer. Who goes by the name of Harry Perry, and living in Los Angeles now, I realize that that's like an icon in our city. He's been performing on the Venice Boardwalk for like 40 years. And as we pass this man and tourists are taking pictures and kind of laughing at this interesting person, we hear Jack, and we turn, and this man recognized my dad from a production of the musical Hair that they did back in the 1970s. And here's a man who sees thousands of faces every day, could pinpoint my dad, and pick him out 30 years later. And you think that's the only version of that story I have? But we were in Philadelphia a few years after, walking near Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, and again we hear Jack, and we turn and there's Ben Franklin, and it's the most esteemed impersonator of Ben Franklin named Ralph Archibald, who also remembered my dad from a show that they did back in the 70s. And I say this not to show off the powerful people that my dad kept in his company, obviously, but because if you met my dad, you had to remember him. He was so unique, and that's because he was genuine. And if you met him, he gave you his time, he gave you his attention, and he made that impact on you. When you make that positive impact, people don't forget you. When I was younger, I didn't know what my dad did. I knew he wore a suit a lot. I knew that if my mom turned on the TV on a given night, we'd see him on the TV. I actually have a scar from jumping at the TV when I was younger. And I knew he would say that line that everyone in the city quoted all the time. You all know it, you can say it with me. The unanimous roll call vote will attach unless I hear an objection. Hearing none, it will attach. He said it super fast. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I still don't know what that means. But as I got older, I sort of understood. When we went out in public, we went to community events and restaurants, and I saw the respect he gave to people and the respect that they gave back, and I knew whatever he did, it was really important. And the truth is, standing here now, all these years later, I didn't see how grueling and how hard and how much effort it takes to give to the city and to a job like that, both at SEMCA and DCC, all these jobs that he held. But if I could summarize what he did for a living, I would say he looked out for people. It's as simple as that. He looked out for the community he loved, for the city he loved, for the people he worked with that he admired and respected so much, and then for us, for his family, of course. And that's really all he did and all he wanted to do. He lived by that kind of sense of, is everything taken care of? Is everyone okay? In the later years, that's what he wanted to make sure, is everyone okay? And he would ask that all the time, and when you live the life that he did the way that he did, that's something you don't have to ask, because, I'm sorry I'm gonna use a tree analogy, but if you plant roots and you give all your effort, all of your being into what you care about and what you love, it's gonna flourish. And when I look at the city, and I look at the community and the people around him, the people he worked with and knew, and especially when I look at his grandkids and at my kids, and I see it flourishing around me, because he taught us, most importantly, how to be a great dad. And that's the number one thing you can take away. And last thing is, his motto was no regrets. That's how he wanted to live his life, and that is the reason why back in the 70s, 1976, a man that looked like a professional wrestler with a beard and a Hawaiian shirt approached a woman who was engaged to be married and delivered one of the most infamous pickup lines ever of, "You're giving me good vibrations." And because he had no regrets and delivered that line, I'm standing in front of you today. I wish I could change it, I can't, but that was the line. But I can truly say that I stand here now in complete gratitude and peace, because I know that he lived a life well lived and a full life and did everything that he wanted to do. And I just hope that if you can take anything from this, just live that life with no regrets and try and leave it a better place than you found it, because that's how he left it. So thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dylan, the youngest of the three. Clearly we put ourselves in chronological order just to make it easy on everybody to set us apart. You'll hear a lot about my dad from a lot of people up here, just in passing, about how great a man he was. And really all the roles and all the hats he wore. Jack O'Reilly, the thespian, Jack O'Reilly, the mayor, Jack O'Reilly, the coach, the father, and the husband. And I can say there definitely was a hierarchy to that, because Jack O'Reilly, the father, and the husband always came first. And to sentiment you've heard from my brothers, and you'll hear from anyone. He excelled at everything he did, and being a father was certainly no exception. I don't think we have any metrics in a world of metrics for everything to measure what it takes to be a good father. But by any standard, he was, just about the best out there. And the key that you've seen other people say too is selflessness. And he really was the most selfless man that I've ever met, and I think that a lot of people met. Everyone else came, and everyone else in the city came before him. I honestly, I think my brother mentioned this, I can't think of anything he did for himself, looking back. It wasn't like he had hobbies or friends or go on a golfing trip, Everything was either for the city, and when he was home, it was for us. You know, he didn't have a lot of time, but as Devin echoed, he made time for everything. He was at every meeting, every practice, every game, coaching us with time he didn't have, and coaching sports he probably had no business coaching. But he just wanted to be there. And that's such a powerful thing growing up, having someone who's just there, who does anything, no questions asked. You know, when I would be at a sporting event and I didn't have to worry about, look up and say, you know, is Dad there? Is Dad there? One was because you could hear him yelling at the refs. If anyone was at a sporting event with him, we'll tell you. And any refs in attendance, I apologize. But that power of not having to wonder was something that was very strong. You know, a lot of stories, Jack stories, everyone's got one. I'll share a minor one of many that relates to his selflessness. One time I was younger, probably 5 or 6, and had gone up north to a friend's cottage. I was a bit of an anxious child, I will admit. Had a fun time, and 11 p.m., time to go to bed, I decide, I feel terrible, I need to go home. You sure you don't want to say, no, I need to go home? Call up my parents, you know, just wait it out, it's nighttime, in the morning we'll come get you, I need to come home right now. And so my dad picks up, middle of the night, no cell phone for them to call him and say, hey, turn around. No maps to say how long it's going to take. I don't know when he got there because I fell asleep, of course. But when I woke up in the morning, there was my dad. And he didn't put me in the car and say, go home, let's get home, go. No, he sat, we had breakfast, we played at the lake for the rest of the day, and then in the afternoon he drove me home. And that whole time he didn't yell at me, why did you call me, why did you bring me up here, complain about coming. No, he just did that because that's what he did, no questions asked. And he did that for everyone. And we're all going to miss that. And I think the biggest thing that we can do, and I know that I can do for him, is just to do those same things for everyone else, especially for my kids, which is what he wants. And I certainly can't say that I can be as, I don't know if any of us can be as selfless as he can, but we can try, and that's the best we can do. He's a great father, and you know, really a larger-than-life man, and he's left a larger-than-life hole in the community that's impossible to fill. But I'm sure what he would want is the sentiment that's passed is, you know, for everyone to try to do some of those things. You know, do more for others, whether it's your family, which is what he would have said as well, for a community or anything else. And just try to fill that void whatever way we can. We're all going to miss him. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dennis. On behalf of Jack's siblings, our sisters, Marianne Dennehy, Cheryl Davis, our sister-in-law Leslie, the wife of our late brother Joseph, my brother Larry and his wife Maureen, and my wife Noemi and myself, I'd like to thank you all for coming here to show your support for Christina and Devin and Melissa and Sean and Ronit and Dylan and Natalia and all their families. I'd also like to thank you for all of your hard work and dedication to making Dearborn not just a great city, but an exceptional one. Your work and your effort will help the lives of people far beyond the Dearborn city limits, beyond county lines, beyond state lines, and it will have a positive impact for many years to come. I've been out of the area for quite some time, but whenever my wife and I would come back to visit, Jack always took time to show us what was new in our old hometown. I remember one year he showed us City Hall art space lofts when they were still under construction. And as we walked through the facility, his eyes were brighter than the welding torches we were walking through as he told us and described what it was going to look like, what it would look like when it was finished. I also remember not too many years ago when Jack gave us a grand tour of the brand new John D. Dingle Transit Center. And I noticed a sly smile on his face as he described how the city nailed its application for federal funds and got everything on its wish list. And I was reminded then of a line my father liked, Mayor John B. O'Reilly Sr. And he would say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. As I said, I've been in California for a long time, So I really only had a nodding acquaintance with Mayor John B. O'Reilly Jr., but I knew Jack. I knew him as the kindest, wisest, most understanding, and the most forgivable brother, a big brother a guy ever had. I also knew him to be just flat out fun. And I don't mean fun in a life of the party kind of way. I mean, he was fun in a, gee, isn't the world an amazing place kind of way. Jack went all out to show his young siblings how wonderful the world could be. He introduced us to great art, great music, great comedy and drama. When I was barely in 10th grade, he saw that I had a keen interest in reading. So he devised a personal reading list for me in high school. It had the likes of Jack London and John Steinbeck. Steinbeck was the guy who literally changed my life. But it also had writers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Samuel Beckett. Beckett was the writer who showed me that language has no limits. Once around that same time I was in high school, Jack took me with him to see a production of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie at the Oakland University, where he was studying for his BFA. And I have to add that a BFA is the perfect undergraduate degree for a future lawyer. We had some time to go. He wanted to go see the show because a good friend of his was playing the lead, and he didn't want to miss her performance. And we had gotten there early, so we had some time to kill. We're walking around the campus, saw a big green field full of clover, and I just wondered out loud, I wonder if there's any with 4 leaves in there. Well, we spent the next 45 minutes on our hands and knees going through that field looking for that one lucky charm. Did we find it? No. But what Jack taught me that day was that the joy is in the seeking, not the finding. I mentioned that Jack taught us or introduced us to a lot of great music. And he had a penchant, I think Chris and his sons will agree, that he would often recite his lines from his favorite songs. Now, I know my siblings join me in expressing our heartfelt and everlasting thanks and gratitude to Chris, to Devin, to Sean, to Dylan and their families for taking care of my big brother, of our big brother, when he needed it most. I recall 2 of his favorite songwriters from that time, from our youth, were Paul Simon and Cat Stevens. And lyrics from a Paul Simon song come to mind when I think about Jack's last days. So you see, this is from Kathy's song. So you see, I have come to doubt all that I once held as true. I stand alone without beliefs. The only truth I know is you. And as I watch the drops of rain weave their weary paths and die, I know that I am like the rain. There but for the grace of you go I. I'd like to share one last anecdote with you. When I was in high school, way 50 plus years ago over in Fortson, I took a speech class. And believe it or not, I passed. But that class, Mr. Zimmerman, the teacher, gave us an assignment. And he called it a liveology. He described it as a eulogy for somebody who's still alive. But not just any person. He wanted us to talk about the person we admire most in life. I gave my liveology about my big brother Jack, who was, is, and always will be the person in this world that I admire most. Now, I know it's a cliche, it's a good cliche, but a cliche nonetheless, to say that when a loved one passes, they live on in our hearts. Well, Jack doesn't just live on in my heart. Jack inspires my heart. Jack gladdens my heart. Jack lifts my heart up when I'm sad, like on days like today. Jack fills my heart with love for all of God's creation. And so may it be until I breathe my last. Amen.
Good morning. Chris, Devin, Sean, Dylan, you're loved by all of us. We don't like being here, but Jack would want us to be here with you. And he's in this room liking what you put together. You know, I was thinking about how do I talk about Jack? How do I talk about what he meant to John and I, what our history is? He was a great mayor of Dearborn and city council long before that. But most importantly, Jack was a dear friend. Public servant was his calling, and he spent all of his life, even as a kid, dedicated to bettering our community in more ways than people realize. But I was thinking last night as I was trying not to be boring and trite in a way but to really capture Jack. When did I first meet Jack? I met, most of you can't think of me as young. I was really a young wife when I married John Dingle. And he brought me to Dearborn we had just gotten married, and we had the Goodfellows annual pancake breakfast, which most of you don't, well, those of you who are, nobody in this room is old, but those that are seasoned will remember that that was one of the big events of homecoming. And John Dingle yells across the room, "Sugar lump!" Now, most of you probably don't even remember Jack's mother, but we all talk about his father, who did inspire him. But his mother was one of the fiercest, toughest giving women there was. And John Dingle had nicknamed her Sugar Lump long before I ever met her because she was a nurse who gave out the polio sugar cubes. And Sugar Lump became part of my life and took me under her wing. And both Jack's father and mother inspired her. He looked up to both his father, who served as mayor of Dearborn himself, but he was inspired by both his father's public service, but his mother's giving to the community. Many of you wonder, how did he begin his political career? Well, John Dingle hired him as his district director, and then he went to Washington. The friendships between the Dingles and the O'Reillys were forged for a lifetime. I remember John and I wouldn't have lived in Dearborn, and Dearborn's always gonna be I love Dearborn. I moved to Dearborn. Jack helped me pick out my home where I lived. But I can remember when I was young, and when John and Jack were in Washington, looking at them in the office, plotting and planning. They get that twinkle in their eye. I'm looking at Chris, she knows that twinkle that I'm talking about. They would plot, they would strategize. They really wanted to do what was right. I mean, the Downriver Community Conference, quite frankly, came out of some of that plotting. And I was remembering some of the things that Jack and John would say to each other. John would tell Jack, "Calm down, quit dreaming, kill the snake closest to you." He'd say to Jack, "I don't pay you to agree with me." But then he'd say, "Don't be so difficult to agree with." Because you know Jack, he would keep going and going and going, and he had sold his story. And he would say, I could hear John saying to Jack, "I hear what you're saying, but what are you telling me?" Those two made a lot of difference together. Ultimately, and Chris, by the way, helped me a lot too when I was a young wife. I know it's hard to think of me once as a young wife, but I was really young when I married John. Jack cared. I remember when he decided it was time to move home. I remember when he ran for city council. He loved Mike Guido. He worked really hard for him, and when he decided to run for mayor. He'd spent his life trying to bring people together, focused on the neighborhoods, keeping the schools strong, keeping Dearborn a strong, vibrant city. He improved the city's public infrastructure, And yes, his efforts included overseeing the construction of what's the John Dingle Transit Center. It got named that because of Jack. They had their vision and their dream of high-speed rail to Chicago, and we're still gonna get it. We're not gonna stop. And we're still seeing the impact of what Jack did today in Southeast Michigan. His vision of seeing us as a leader in mobility innovation is because of a lot of what he did. He promoted economic development and community programs, most notably with Ford Land. When he worked with Ford Land, Wagner, we got the Wagner Place development to remake Dearborn's downtown area. Jack had vision. He could talk, but a lot of people talk and never implement. Jack implemented. We also talked about he never let go of his love of the arts. He was well known for his dramatic storytelling. His favorite time of the year is March Reading Month, when he could talk to the schools and the libraries. And how many of you remember his decade-long reprisal as the grandfather in the Noretta Dunsmore School performance of the Nutcracker? Jack and John would love to go to Gilbert and Sullivan, and he loved the arts. I can't believe Jack's gone. We worked together on important issues, and he left a very permanent mark on this city. Though he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on in the countless lives that he improved over his decades of service to his community. We all need to remember that. Rashida and I flew a flag over the Capitol in his memory, which is back there. We did a resolution. But you know what Jack would want me to challenge you with as I close? His father taught him this, and this is how he lived his life and how we should live our life in his memory. If you don't like the way things are, change them yourselves. Don't stop thinking about Jack. Don't stop fighting. Thank you.
Good morning. Mrs. O'Reilly, the beloved children and family members of Mayor O'Reilly, elected officials, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. We gather here today to celebrate the life of a remarkable leader and a unique public servant. Mayor John B. Jack O'Reilly Jr. gave so much to the great city of Dearborn and to its people. He dedicated over 30 years of his life to serving the city of Dearborn, including 15 years as a mayor. Mayor O'Reilly spent most of his life in public service improving our city and building connections that made a difference. He was well known for his commitment to improving our city. From overseeing the construction of the John D. Dingle Transit Center to cutting through red tape to make the city run more efficiently. He always put Dearborn and its residents first. He worked hard to make Dearborn a better place for everyone, and his impact will be felt for years to come. I had the honor and privilege of working closely with Mayor O'Reilly during his 2017 re-election campaign, which I helped manage along with many friends who are here today. It was during that time that I saw firsthand not only his incredible dedication, but also his kindness, humility, and love for this community. Mayor O'Reilly was more than a leader. He was someone who deeply cared for the people he served and always strived to do what was best for them. As a real estate broker, I had the honor and privilege to work with Jack on many issues that affected our industry. In 2009, as the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee at the Dearborn Board, during the height of the real estate meltdown, I asked Mayor O'Reilly to consider eliminating the escrow program. He understood the negative impact of this program, which was driving down real estate values. His decision to eliminate the escrow policy made a tremendous impact on the housing market in Dearborn. Within few months, many vacant bank foreclosures were being purchased by investors and homeowners. Mayor O'Reilly was able to navigate the city through the toughest economic conditions since the Great Depression. As an Arab American and a proud resident of this city, I will never forget when Mayor O'Reilly stood up and defended the Arab American community in Dearborn. When Terry Jones drove all the way from Florida with the intent to insult our Dearborn community by burning our holy book, the Quran, in front of the Islamic Center on Ford Road, Mayor O'Reilly and his police chief, Ron Haddad, spent countless hours working on strategies to counter his campaign of hatred being directed at our city. Mayor O'Reilly appeared on CNN and on Fox News to defend the entire city of Dearborn against allegations made by a U.S. Senate candidate from Nevada that the city of Dearborn was governed by Sharia law. As we reflect on his life, let us honor his memory by continuing his work of building a stronger and better community. His dedication, leadership, and passion for Dearborn will always inspire us. The legacy of Mayor O'Reilly will live on. Again, I extend my sincere condolences to Mrs. O'Reilly, his children, and his entire family and friends. May God bless your soul in eternal peace, my friend. You will be missed, Jack. Thank you.
A few months ago, under Mayor Hammoud's leadership, we in the council renamed our West Senior Tower after Mayor O'Reilly. And I thought that was such a great honor for him. Having worked for him for a number of years, I know how humble he was. And I was really happy to see that. I used to enjoy speaking with him about the history of Dearborn. He really loved Dearborn. And talking about his father's tenure as mayor and the comparisons between his tenure and his father's tenure. Throughout our history, we've had many, many remarkable mayors in this town. Many larger-than-life figures, some with a lot of pizzazz, some with a lot of showmanship, but everyone with their heart on the best of the city. Jack was a very humble person. From what I read about his father, also a very humble mayor. But I think it's important, looking at our history, the importance of their tenures as mayor. Both of them came in during some of the worst economic times that this city was faced with. Both of them really guided the ship throughout their tenure to make sure that Dearborn was successful, and I have a lot of respect for that. Just over 12 years ago, Mayor O'Reilly gave me one of the biggest blessings in my life by appointing me the fire chief. I had never spoken with Mayor O'Reilly before my interview, and the fact that he appointed me really sent the message to me that he was a mayor in it for the right reasons, that he generally looked at my abilities and not what I could do for him or anything like that that we see across the country in so many politicians, unfortunately. But Mayor O'Reilly was such a great person. He gave me such a great blessing, and I felt very fortunate for 10 years to have worked with him under his administration. I learned so many things from him. Perhaps the most important lesson I learned was that it's a privilege to be allowed to serve the citizens of Dearborn. I could stand here and rattle off just a list of accomplishments the Mayor O'Reilly championed throughout his time as mayor, like the Dingle train station and the Union's Dearborn housing complex, the Wagner Place, or just the fact that he got us through one of the worst recessions in our history, through two federally declared disasters, COVID-19. But I know he wouldn't want me to do that. He was a humble man, and he never wanted the media attention, the accolades, the awards. He simply wanted to do what was best for the town he loved. What I believe Mayor O'Reilly should be recognized for is his profound dedication to service and to this community. Mayor O'Reilly was in the office every day until his last day as mayor. He considered his position a service, a duty to his fellow man. He became mayor because of his profound sense of duty. He stayed mayor because of his profound sense of duty. He continued to run for mayor because he knew that he was the best fit for Dearborn and all the challenges that we had. Like I said, he was in his office every day, and I can tell you, throughout my time under his administration, my wife would get angry with me sometimes. Sometimes, why are you working so much? Why are you working so many hours? And I would say that I got Mayor O'Reilly's in his 70s with 2 fake knees. He's there all the time, so I got to keep up with that. And I was very impressed. Seeing his schedule was just unreal. But throughout my time with him, I watched him. He made numerous decisions for the betterment of our community. And he did that even if he knew he was going to take flack for it. If it was not the popular decision, he did it because he knew it was the right thing for Dearborn. Mayor O'Reilly was not a politician, and numerous people have said that today. He was a public servant. He never made a decision based on political gain or for fear of not getting reelected. Every decision he made was for the betterment of our city. I watched him as he made continuous efforts to bring Dearborn together. I mentioned this previously, but talking to Mayor O'Reilly, he never wanted to hear about East End, West End, South End. It was just always one Dearborn. And throughout my time with him, I witnessed so many leaders in our region, beyond national level, state level, local level, seek out Mayor O'Reilly's advice and expertise. He was recognized and elected to so many leadership roles within government. His integral parts in the Downriver Community Conference, Conference of Western Wayne, U.S. Conference of Mayors, you name it. He was involved in it, and everybody knew him and respected him. And yet, even with all those leadership positions, he continued to stay humble. He never wanted credit, never wanted to be the star of the show. That was a fact during election years. Sometimes it might have been a little frustrating for us on his campaign team. But he was just a humble guy, and only wanted to perform what he truly thought was his duty and was right, and that was to do right by the citizens of Dearborn. He defended his department heads from political attacks. He respected his team. He respected his constituents. He defended our city. He was the first to speak out against racism. As Sam mentioned, when outsiders came to try to divide us in the city, it was the Mayor O'Reilly that took them head on. When the media reported falsehoods about our community, he took them head on. Mayor O'Reilly never took to negative political ads, regardless of his opponent. He respected every single person and treated all with fairness and dignity. You rarely saw Mayor O'Reilly get angry or frustrated during city business, but I will say sometimes he did get a little angry. It was pretty famous around the department heads that he could go from 0 to 10 pretty quick, but it was very rare. But when you did see it, I kind of actually liked it because within 30 seconds of getting mad at you, he would feel bad about being mad at you, and then you'd usually get what you wanted. So it worked out really well. But his kindness rubbed off on everybody, and I myself would like to say I'm a better person today because of the time I spent with him. Although I know I still fall short of his example. Dearborn is a better city because of Jack O'Reilly. We're stronger, we're more resilient. We're a stronger, more resilient community because of Jack O'Reilly. After a decade of working with Mayor O'Reilly, I know he would be the last person to seek all these speeches and attention, and would most likely would be super uncomfortable right now. But it's important that we remember and acknowledge his humbleness, his perseverance, his willingness to sacrifice for the betterment of Dearborn, and his unwavering dedication to the community he loved.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. To Chris, to the entire family, the O'Reilly family. You know, you heard many of the people come forward and speak of the stories that they have with Jack. Unfortunately, I'm not the individual that has many stories to share about my time with Jack, as you know, I grew up alongside his boys. I have more stories with Devin than I do with Jack. But when you assume the mayorship after someone like Jack O'Reilly, you can't help but question if you have the ability to fill those shoes. Now I imagine, and I'm maybe inferring here, I have many conversations with my wife about the priorities and what comes first. And I think we all heard today from his brother and from his children how family always comes first. My wife always reminds me that as mayor, you have the ability to make mistakes. Your mistakes may be forgotten. But as a father and as a husband, that privilege does not exist. You have one chance to get that right. And you have to ensure that you're there for each and every single moment. Because being present means the world in that moment of time. And you will not get a second chance to be present. And I know that, and I see that in my interactions with Devin. And obviously we all heard that today in the stories that were shared from his children and from his brother. I don't know what it is about mayors with brothers in California. I do have one. But I'm here to tell you, you're living in the wrong place. Because individuals like Jack and his father and what they have done in building the city that we live in today. It was never about, South End, the East End, or the West End. More importantly, it was never about the Yemeni community, the Lebanese community, or the white community, or the black or Hispanic community with Jack. I knew that from the outset. It was always about the mantra of one Dearborn. Doing what was best for the entirety of the city, ensuring that we were all ushering in the same direction to help uplift what we knew, that Dearborn was the greatest place on earth. And it was one of the best kept secrets. The media has gotten it wrong for decades. People and pundits will get it wrong for decades to come. But all of us, born and raised in the city, privileged to raise our families here, understand the greatness that it is that comes with the city of Dearborn. Till this day, I've yet to hang up my picture on the wall. You actually have all the mayors and my team and councils on me. Why isn't that picture up there? And I walk by it every day, and I see Jack's photo. And I always ask myself, I'm not ready to put my picture up there because Jack was a great mayor. He was an exceptional man. He was a humble human being. And I don't think I'm there yet when you compare yourself to the likes of Jack O'Reilly. This is somebody that oftentimes, as somebody didn't have the chance to have many conversations with him. But I drive across the city. Now it's been 3 years. And at first there are some decisions I may not have understood. But after months of looking or driving by the same piece of development, the same program he might have launched, it starts making sense. And in that way, I feel like I'm having a conversation with Jack in the day-to-day roles of trying to lead the city forward. I came across the renderings of the John Dingell Transit Center, opening up an old filing cabinet. And you saw what the vision was, and you saw how they executed it. And very rarely do you see the execution surpass the renderings. And they did so. You see Wagner Place and development that's to come. You see the hub. We don't talk about the hub. The over $2 billion investment that Ford is making because of Jack's leadership. There's so much for us to be thankful for in the city because of the likes of Jack O'Reilly. Homecoming Festival because of the O'Reilly family his father had first brought forward. It is a loss for all of us. An immense loss for the family. A loss for us because he really was a vault of Dearborn's history. I remember having a breakfast with him at Tria at the Henry. And this was about 9 years ago, when I first wanted to pursue public office. It was scheduled for 30 minutes. I think he went for 2.5 hours. And he said his words, and then I got a history lesson on things I did not know. When I assumed office, all 31 of my years were under Jack O'Reilly's leadership to some capacity here in the city of Dearborn. Whether it was his time leading our city council or his time leading us as mayor. And so first and foremost, as Abdullah Hamoud, I'm thankful for the city that Jack O'Reilly built, that welcomed my parents, that allowed them to raise 5 children within this great city, and that allowed me the opportunity to pursue a life of public office and hopefully follow in his footsteps, even if in a small capacity, to try to accomplish the things that he accomplished. And so to the family, I thank you for the sacrifices that undoubtedly you made, as I see all of our families make each and every single day for those of us who pursue public office. And to all the residents of Dearborn, I thank you, and to his team, because without you all, without us all in this together, we would not be where we are today. Thank you.
Just want to do a final thank you all for joining us here today. Thank you to all the speakers who knew him, and to everyone who shared kind of their memories. As I said, I wish we had days, because each of you could probably come up here and do minutes, hours of material on Jack O'Reilly. And so this was just a small glimpse. But as speakers have said, keep those memories in your heart, but also share them. Talk to each other. Tell people about it. And in that way, his memory will live on. And so again, I thank you so much for all joining us here. This is a small room, but these are the people who knew him best, who he cared for, who loved him, and who appreciated him as much as anyone. So I can't thank you enough for being here on behalf of our family. And please take the memories with you, share them with CDTV. Take in some of the photos and pictures, and if you've got some great photos and pictures, reach out to our family. We love to kind of keep those memories alive. We love to see that stuff. It's been a hard time, a difficult time, but our family has found a lot of joy in people reaching out and sharing those memories, sharing pictures and videos and stuff from years past, because everyone knew him in that particular way, in their own special way, and it's just great to see that culmination of it. So keep Jack in your hearts, keep Jack in your thoughts, keep talking about him, keep sharing, and thank you again for joining us here today.